Good evening. Before starting, I want to ask everyone a question. Have you ever had the experiences that your emotion is like this when you are in front of someone that you are not really familiar with, but then it comes to be like this when you are in front of your parents, your best friend, or siblings, that someone you are really familiar with. Um, we can usually act calm, even though we feel angry about someone we are not really familiar with. But when it comes to the parents or friends, we um, aren't able to hide our feelings, and then we will act it out. And even though you know that you regret after it, the
Should we answer?
yes.
The question is, are you peaceful when you face strangers and losing it when you
Losing
face
temper.
the family?
Or friends.
Sometimes.
Someone say sometimes.
Um, Actually, the relationships between um, someone we uh, someone we are really familiar with will become complicated more than how we deal, how we get along with each others. And that's why we need a simple but essential ratio that could help us to balance the arguments and between our relationship and make it last longer. And I want to that's about my program. The first part, I will talk about what is the connection between happiness and relationship. And second is about the essential tip that we should use inside when we're getting along with our families or friends. And the third one is about the John Gottman, and the last is the 5-to-1 ratio. Um, and Hubbard had an experiences had a, had experiment studying 268 men, and the experiment lasted for 70 years. The first step, they want to study what's the they want to they want to know what changes relationship will bring in our daily life. The first step they take is to assessment if a man can get along well with his parents or siblings. And the second step is that they would study if they are good at consensus others. It was provided into A, B, C 3 levels. And for the men in the A levels, they can be good at dealing their own bad negative emotion, and they can stand in others' position to understand them. And the third step they take is to study if they are majority or in majority. The men who was majority usually
maturity
are usually good at suppression and altruism. They could think of others before they act. At the end of their experiment, they summed up that happiness is love, full stop. And besides, they also said the relationships had a lot to do with our daily life. First, it can bring good effect on our physical health. According to another Harvard study, the women who enjoy their marriage had a lower lower risk at getting cardiovascular disease. And it can also bring positive influence on job satisfaction and also income. In the last experiment, we talk about the men who are good at who are majority and in majority. The men who performs better usually get maximum income at 81,000 a year. On the contrary, the men who didn't perform so well got only 36,000 a year. And next is about the essential tip. Just 7 days married, Polina Marinova, the author of the newsletter, the profile, asked the reader what's the best tip for their marriage. Good advices poured in. However, in the middle of it comes the most important but dead simple one. That is to make sure they follow the 5-to-1 ratio. The 5-to-1 ratio means every negative interaction appeared in the conflicts. You need at least 5 positive interactions to create a lovely and stable relationship. It was not dreamed up by those who the proclaimed love expert. It was backed up by decades of research from the most respected experts in the field of marital stability. This is John Gottman and his wife. And this is the book they published and made together called 8 States, teaching people how to create a wonderful marriage. And he has the ability to predict if a couple would divorce with 90% of accuracy. He and his collaborators boiled down to look at if a couple follow the 5-to-1 ratio. And they found out the differences between the happy relationship and unhappy relationship has a lot to matter with the balance between negative interactions and positive interactions. And what is called a negative interaction or a positive interaction? Sometimes a simple eye roll can mean negative reaction. Others, like bad attitude and tone, or keep making excuses like when you are communicating, or ignore what the other is saying. For me, when I was communicating with my mom, if I make a loud noise during the process, she would go nuts, and then the communicate couldn't be continued, and we cannot solve the problem. But now a positive interaction can diffuse the tension and make it keep going. Sometimes you can make a quick joke to diffuse the tension. Besides, you can also tilt your head to a side and then nod your head to show that you are trying to listen. And make sure your tiptoe turn to face the people who are talking with you. It shows respect that you are really trying to communicate with him. Or you can try to lean forward your body and squeeze or hold its hand to show that you really love him or her. Relationships can be complicated and sometimes maintaining a healthy relationship can be tricky. But if you can set, but you can, it's of a good beginning if you set the 5-to-1 ratio as the baseline to talk with to get along with each other. Thanks for listening.